welcome in.
It's Commanders week.
It is Commanders Preview Pod. It's Friday, December the 13th. Saints versus Commanders. Matthew Paris, honorary captain of this show. I don't know. We got to make it interesting somehow.
Yeah, sure. What, John Ridgway's return doesn't do it for you?
No. Marshon Lattimore would be a big story most weeks. Jayden Daniels might be a big story most weeks, but this is Matthew Paris covering his old team.
He's had this circled on the calendar.
We're just going to give
like
you the
a
bell.
year.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we're just going to let him
podcast.
have it. Okay, my first question, is this the first time the Saints have actually played the Washington Commanders? I think they were the Washington football team the last time, right?
That is correct.
Correct. Yeah, 2021.
21, they were the football team.
Yeah.
So this is a first for the Saints franchise. It's the 5-8 Saints and the 8-5 Commanders. And the teams might actually be farther apart than that, given their current states.
Currently, yes. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, look, the Saints have dealt with like crazy injury stuff all season. That like looking into the data, the other 31 NFL teams, it feels probably worse than most of them. And to not have your quarterback and your top two receivers and whatever you want to call Taysom Hill and Paulson Adebo and the list goes on and on. It's a tough beat being a Saints fan right now.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But one thing that's not tough is that Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus.
Smooth.
Their banking decisions are actually made here in New Orleans by local bankers who know the community and take the time to know you. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. I thought I've had better transitions.
Oh, that was nice. Nice design.
That's nice, yeah.
All right. Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to break down Saints Commanders. We have a quarterback decision, which we talked about on Wednesday. It did go the way we thought. Jake Haener is going to start on Sunday. So we'll open with that, and we will break the game down right after this.
Nice bike.
Thanks. Can I get it back before Saturday?
That might be tough.
Whoa. Is it just you?
For now, let's take a look.
Hi, strawberry mango. Mm-hmm. Here you go. Thank you. I'll take another one.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. Parlay Builder gives you all the game day action from all across the league. Multiple games, legs, and props, all in one spot. It's so quick and easy, you can keep your focus on the games and your nachos. Or if you're focusing on one game, remember, you can place your same game parlays live during the action. Caesars Sportsbook, the only sportsbook app with Caesars rewards.
Okay, welcome back. Saints Commanders preview. I did want to get the betting line out there. It's Commanders by 7.5. I saw an 8 this morning, too.
Whoa, that seems high.
I'm curious to know, whether there's a difference in the market between Rattler and Haener. I think most people probably expected Haener all week. I doubt there's that much of a difference, but we're going to find out. So that's going to be our transactions segment, which is proudly sponsored by Associated Grocers. Join our team and help support the success of local independent retail grocers. Apply today for available positions at Associated Grocers. So, guys, we talked about this Haener versus Rattler on Wednesday, and, there was still, I guess, a small chance Derek Carr was going to be healthy. Well, the news leaked out last night. It is going to be Jake Haener. Probably not surprising. He gets his chance. Spencer got his chance. Were any of y'all surprised by the news?
No. Although I don't think there was anything they could have done that would have been surprising outside of naming Ben DiNucci the starter.
That'd have been awesome.
Ben DiNucci.
Boy, the Commanders would have been completely befuddled if that would happen.
It's really too bad they didn't play the
for about
Giants.
5 snaps.
Going to have DiNucci versus DeVito.
They played him on Thanksgiving, 2020.
Right.
Commanders
Please.
won by...
That's why
Ring
they
the
brought
bell.
him in to get the intel. They wanted
Yeah.
to break down DiNucci's brain about
Yeah.
Commanders.
About 5 coaching staffs ago for the Washington.
How many Commanders are still on the 53-man roster?
Don't ask
game?
Matt.
From
knows.
that game? Oh, it's... Okay.
It actually wasn't a serious question.
From last year, it's only... they got rid of 27 dudes.
Okay, so we'll get to that because this is a totally different team. But Haener, just to recap what we talked about on Wednesday, Jeff, maybe a slightly safer pick than Rattler. We've seen Rattler be loose with the ball. But mostly I just think this is, okay, the rookie got his chance. Now the second-year guy gets his chance.
Yeah, different head coach, right? Different decision maker. And I'm excited to see him play. I am. He hasn't been in yet with this similar opportunity where he's had a week of preparation with the first team, with a full game plan in. He's always come in mop-up duty or backup duty or emergency duty, whatever you want to call it. So this will be a real opportunity for him. And I think all of us would agree, like, there's something about that guy. He's confident.
Use the word everybody uses, man. Go ahead.
Moxie.
He does.
Everyone's
the ball comes out
Marriott
quick.
chain.
Yeah, I just think it'll be fun to watch. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him, put it that way. Now, we'll see how he does. But it's not surprising at all. I think we all expected this to happen.
Jazzy Jake Haener.
Yeah, Jazzy
Shout
Jake.
out Fletcher Mackle.
Yeah, Fletcher Mackle's probably
That's
right
such a
now
Fletcher
celebrating.
Nickname. Yeah, his numbers are not good. He's been put into situations where they've three games, Chiefs, Chargers, where they were in severe comeback mode, and then just the one series against the Giants where they were just trying to run the clock out. So his numbers are not good, but I do think that the Saints need to find out if there's something here, especially as they look toward the future.
At least, I mean, look, I think it'd be bad of them to base it off of one game, but at least give yourself an opportunity to see what he can do in this role when he's got the entire week to prepare. I mean, Haener's talked about it himself. It's been difficult for him to understand how to be a backup quarterback, which is where you come in cold. You're not necessarily expecting the opportunity to come, and you have to kind of come in, when the game's already flowing and figure out how to play. This will be different for him, and that excuse, if you want to call it that reasoning for his play, whatever, that won't exist this time.
Right, and Haener has to prove that. Forget the starter thing for a second. He has to prove that he's a capable backup, someone who can come in and start or stop like just one game and go back to being a backup. Like, I think they're happy with him, what he's provided this year, but in terms of him lasting in the NFL, even as a backup, he needs to show he's capable of that, and this is an opportunity to do so.
I'm interested to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I think he's, like Jeff said, a lot of moxie, a lot of grit.
Yeah.
But I do think that he's an underrated athlete. I think he's probably a better thrower than people would give him credit for because of his size.
Mike Triplett would agree.
Yeah, he almost took off Mike Triplett's head earlier this year in training camp. An errant pass. He's got some ability,
And he'll
sure.
run a little bit.
Yeah. He's had a couple 8-9 yard scrambles in his time in the game this year. I mean, I think we'll get into this, but I think it'll be really important for the Saints to protect him, and for Haener to have an understanding and a feel for the pocket, because that was one of the biggest problems when Derek Carr went out. Is those guys took way too many negative plays. Spencer Rattler was sacked 14 times, and something like 200 dropbacks was like a 8% or like an 11% rate that he was sacked. Haener's been sacked 3 times in his dropbacks, and that's like more than double what Derek Carr has been sacked in 9 games, 10 games starting. So they need to be cognizant of that and avoid those negative plays. But I'm really interested in seeing what he can do.
Well, let's transition into that. But first, Saints fans, Associated Grocers is hiring. If you're looking to join a team dedicated to supporting independent grocers, apply today. Your future starts here. Okay, so when the Saints have the ball, we know it'll be Jake Haener. To your point, Luke, they do have the offensive line back in front of him, which is something Spencer Rattler didn't have. They're also facing a defense, Matt, that I think they're better than people thought they would be, but that's kind of a low bar because people thought they were going to be really bad. So they're okay. This is a gettable defense.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team like the Saints that struggle against the run. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that's been an issue for them. Their pass defense has been better than expected, and I think Marshon Lattimore, his influence there is going to really impact them. But it's just not a team that they don't really have the juice yet. Like, they have really good linebacker play. Frankie Louvu has been an awesome signing for them. Bobby Wagner I thought he was washed up, but he's not. He's having a really good season. And so, that they really Like they tore down that roster this offseason, and a lot of the changes were on defense. And they didn't make any Luvu was their only one of their only 3-year deals. But besides that, they were all just kind of like 1 to 2 year deals that allowed them to reset but not commit hard term. And I think it was a smart strategy.
To answer your question, Washington's rushing defense is the 28th rushing defense in the NFL.
It's even worse than New Orleans's.
Yep, and they're giving up 4.8 yards per carry, which is 27th in the NFL.
Yeah. New Orleans is averaging 5. So
yeah, so they, I mean, and that's going to be the Saints' strategy in any game, Jeff. Like, it doesn't matter who they're playing this year. They want to establish the run, especially in this game where you maybe want to limit Jayden Daniels' opportunities with the Washington offense. Like, you're going to try to set up the run. The problem is Washington knows that. The Saints know it. Everybody knows it.
Well, I'm interested. We talked about it earlier this week to see if Washington copies what the Giants did and loads the front up.
6 defensive
gets in that bear, gets in that bear front, because it was really effective, and it does mess with your leverage and your blocking angles, and it certainly caused the Saints problems. I mean, they had so many negative plays, and there were a lot of backups on the Giants' defensive line. It wasn't like they were running their starters out there. So I think if you're smart, they'll definitely employ some of that, I think.
yeah, and Washington does have the defensive tackles to do that. I mean, Jonathan Allen is hurt, but they have Deron Payne, Fedarian Mathis, Johnny Newton, who was their second-round pick. So they have beefy guys up the middle, and then their defensive ends are solid too. A lot of those guys played under Dan Quinn in Dallas, like Dante Fowler, who was in Atlanta as well. They brought a lot of familiarity over there, and their defensive line is pretty different than it was a year ago.
As far as the weapons at Haener's disposal, using that term loosely, I didn't look at the first 2 games. He's thrown 29 passes this year. A couple of them were in backup duty against the Panthers and Cowboys in those blowouts. But just looking at the last 24 passes he's thrown, I'm going off of memory here. I looked this up this morning. I think 12 were to running backs or tight ends. 11 were to Chris Olave, and then there was one other to a wide receiver. That was the deep ball to Bub Means in L.A. So without Olave, it sure looks like he's going to be feeding the running backs and tight ends. And that can kind of counteract what y'all are talking about with a defensive front trying to make you get rid of the ball quick. Those quick passes, I mean, it feels like we're going to see a lot of that.
It's kind of his game, right? I think he can. I think he's capable of throwing a solid deep ball. We saw it a lot in camp. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's going to be throwing those 65-yarders that Derek Carr was throwing to MVS. I don't think we're just going to see a lot of that. And I think when Haener's been at his best, at least in our small glimpses of him in training camp, preseason, a little bit of the regular season, I think it's when he's got the rhythm passing game going. He's a very good processor, and he gets the ball out on time and in the right place. And that's, we've seen guys have a lot of success in the NFL doing that. I mean, Brock Purdy's an example, even if last night's game wasn't great. I think you can be successful running an offense that way. You don't have to have a laser arm like Spencer Rattler does. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a lot of Alvin Kamara. I think Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau have been both kind of on the up and up lately. They had a couple big catches in that win against New York. Both of their scoring drives were really set up by big catches. Foster Moreau had the one-hander. Juwan Johnson had the 30-yard seam ball. He caught the touchdown. I think they have to get those guys involved to get the most out of this offense, because really right now it's MVS and who knows what else you're going to get out of that receiver group. Although Cedric Wilson's only touchdown this year came from Jake Haener.
From Jake Haener.
On the catch?
Close, but no. One thing that occurs to me when we talk about these kind of beefed up defensive fronts, this bear defense that the Saints have struggled against, and also thinking back to training camp, what Haener was good at, you can't do it all the time, but I wonder if we see a little more hurry up, because that can be an antidote. You make those defensive linemen run plays faster and faster and faster and tire them out. And Haener was pretty good at the 2-minute drill in camp.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on what they want to do. Maybe they're going to try to run a similar type of game plan to what they did against the Rams, where they try to ball control and choke out the offense. And maybe they figure they can do that because Washington's been a pretty bad run defense so far. If it were me, I'm not an NFL coach. I'm definitely not paid millions of dollars to do this. Like, I wouldn't want to go into this game with a conservative game plan, personally. You got a backup quarterback. You know, you're touchdown dogs at home. Like, I think you got to do the sort of stuff that you're talking about. Throw some stuff they're not expecting. Throw some hurry up in the middle of the game. Change the tempo, and let Haener try to cook a little bit.
I really like that. Just number one, you could surprise people, but number two, Darren Rizzi, and we mentioned this Wednesday. Like, okay, you're 3-1. You've beat some bad teams. Falcons are not playing very well. They're the best team you've beat. This would be a statement. This would be a, hey, I'm here to win games. I'm here to coach this team long term. I don't know. I mean, and you don't do that by being careful, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I think it's going to be really, really hard for him to get the job, considering what he's dealing with right now, right? But if you go out to a 4-1 record and beat one of the better teams in the NFC with your backup quarterback, minus some of your other best offensive weapons, I think that's a really nice feather in his cap. I think either of the next 2 weeks, if they're able to get a win in either of these two games, which I don't think any of us are expecting, I think that would open some eyes. I think they would open some eyes in the building too. Like, they all know what Darren Rizzi's all about. I know he's popular there. I think he's popular with the decision makers in the building. But like, this would be something different. Yeah, how many times, really, just in the last 3 years, have they beaten like an upper class team in the NFL?
Not many.
I don't think that.
Do you count
maybe,
the Bucs
maybe
last
never.
year?
I don't think they had. I don't know if they had a single like late season win against a team with a winning record.
The Bucs last year would have been.
Yeah,
but they have a winning record because they play in a bad division. They beat Seattle in the game.
Seattle was sub 500
after they were sub 500 that year. Yeah, so I think you're right.
I think he's playing with house money in a way, in that I don't think the losses hurt him at all, and I think the wins can only help him. You know what I mean? Because I think he's got so much circumstances. So much of the circumstances are against him with the injuries, and like Luke said, everyone in the building knows, they're familiar with Rizzi. So I think he's kind of in a no-lose situation. He's supposed to lose the game. They're supposed to lose the game. But if he wins, that's a feather in his cap. But I don't think if he loses this game, it hurts him at all. I don't think he's being judged that way.
Depends on how the loss goes.
Yeah, but I mean, Washington plays, and certainly we have the expert over here, but they play very fast on offense. So it'd be interesting to see if the Saints go into that game and say, okay, we're going to get in a track meet with the team, and that's what they do. And I don't think that's a bad strategy to see maybe what you got in Haener. I think Haener might play well in that kind of situation.
It was a good. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, just be aggressive against the aggressors. I like it.
Yeah.
But you bully the bully. That's a good spot to transition into when the Commanders have the ball. I think the Colts finished 9-8 last year, and the Saints did go win in Indy against a backup quarterback, but they went 9-8 with the backup quarterback. So just to be fair, okay. When Washington has the ball, this is obviously the Jayden Daniels show. The LSU Heisman winner, number 2 draft pick. It's been fantastic. I mean, he's been everything they could have dreamed of.
Yeah. Go Tigers, baby. He's been awesome. I had pretty high hopes for him in the NFL. I just think his game translates well to the NFL, but like he has surpassed my expectations for sure. And you can just see it. I mean, you see it with the team. You hear it when you listen to those guys talk. Just the sort of impact one guy can make on a franchise.
Yeah, no, and it was funny talking to Cam Jordan this week. He was joking, but he wasn't joking about how annoyed he seemed to be about the prospect of trying to tackle Jayden Daniels. Like, I think it's going to be rough. Luke, I know you wrote about it, but Jayden Daniels, like, career high in rushing yards is 88. That was week 1.
Taking the over?
Taking the over for this week. And I don't know the last time the Saints allowed a 100-yard rusher to a quarterback, but...
It was Jalen Hurts.
I was going to say, it can't have been that long.
21, something like
21.
Hurts
I think it might have been Jalen Hurts' very first start. He ran for like
right.
105.
I realize that's like kind of harder to do than it seems, but this is going to be such a bad matchup for them. And even if they limit Jayden Daniels like that way, Brian Robinson is having a really good season as well. Like he's a legit running back for them now, and that's going to be a lethal one too, I think.
Can I make a bold prediction? I like doing these on the show because
Of course.
I get a lot of them right.
And we just ignore the ones you get wrong.
That's right.
Go ahead.
50-plus yard touchdown for Scary Terry this week.
Oh yeah.
Saints are like giving up way too many explosives. Terry McLaurin has had a lot of explosive plays this year. I feel like that's coming this week. This could be one of those games where it's like after the game we're like, are we going to write our fifth story about their inability to prevent explosive plays defensively? Because it feels like there's a 30-yard scramble in there, a 50-plus yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin, a busted gap that Brian Robinson exploits for a big gain. Austin Eckler's is he out?
He's on injured reserve for the
Okay, that's
concussion.
right. But he was having a lot of big plays too. And then they got the ageless Zach Ertz in there. Saints have really struggled against tight ends too. It doesn't feel like a very good matchup for them.
Washington's offensive performances have kind of gone one of two ways this year. They've been super explosive and just blown the doors off of teams in the first half. They did it to Carolina. They did it to Tennessee. There's a couple of the Monday night game in Cincinnati. Obviously, they were able to go toe to toe with Burrow and Chase and company, or they've been kind of very inconsistent, right? They beat the Giants with 7 field goals. They struggled against the Cowboys all game. They got going late in that one, but kind of struggled.
Game they needed a Hail Mary.
The Bears game they needed the Hail Mary. Like it's kind of been one or the other. And if you look at the Saints defense and the injuries they have, and Marshon Lattimore is playing for the other team, and the history against mobile quarterbacks, like I kind of lean toward the first, man.
I do too. Yeah, we'll get to it later. I almost picked a 40 piece, but I didn't go that strong. But they're averaging almost 30. They're averaging I think 30 points per game, something like that. And it's a really good offense. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, he was kind of a laughingstock. He had to reset. Went to Thailand for vacation. The photos that went viral, but he's kind of done like a nice job of coming back to the NFL. He had a year in college working with Caleb Williams. Has really done a nice job, and I think has re-entered that discussion for head coaching jobs. He could be a candidate maybe here or elsewhere, maybe in Chicago with Caleb Williams. Like he's done a really nice job. I know in Washington, though, that one of the reasons why people were kind of freaking out about their offense is because Kingsbury's, in Arizona, the stats, declined over the second half of the season. Mm-hmm. And people were curious of whether that was going to happen there.
And that started. They did have a couple rough games, but they're coming off of bye week. Their game right before the bye was against Tennessee, and they played really well on offense.
Yeah, they answered a lot of those things. And some of those Arizona things, Kyler Murray was hurt.
Or playing Call of Duty.
Right.
I just heard somebody say Call of Duty came out on October 30th, and what has Kyler Murray done since then? He's been terrible. I was like, Okay, quick note on special teams. I kind of posed this as a question: Is Matthew Hayball actually good? He's leading the Pro Bowl in votes for NFC punters. He gets all these punts inside the 20, but then Darren Rizzi's screaming at him and having an aneurysm on the sideline, and you kind of look at some of his punts and you're like, that doesn't pass the eye test. What do we think about Matthew Hayball?
I think he's solid. And I do trust the Saints' eye for these sorts of things, even if I think the Lou Headley experiment didn't really play out last year. Look, they have a lot of guys who Darren Rizzi brought in or coached who have jobs in the NFL right now. John Parker Romo was a camp guy. He's kicking for the Vikings right now. Daniel Whelan in Green Bay was a camp guy. He's their punter. Blake Gillikin still has a job. I think there's just a lot of people who have had his influence who are still in the league, and those are hard jobs to come by. So they're going through some rookie growing pains with him, I think. He hasn't been as consistent as they would want, and that the reason Rizzi was screaming at him, I believe, is because it was supposed to be a directional punt that he left in the middle of the field. It got returned for a touchdown, but I think generally he's been solid. I don't think he's a Pro Bowler. I think that's
No, he doesn't either, by the way. And I talked to him. He was like, "It's just because my name is first on the list and people don't vote. People don't pay attention to that." I was like, "All right,
At least he's self-aware.
But like, I think he's been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be like a part like deep within a recess of Darren Rizzy's brain going like, why did I let Thomas Morstead go? You know, he's still very, very good, even though he's my age. But I don't think he's been like a hindrance to him, and I think their coverage teams have generally been pretty solid, even though the last couple of weeks they've been kind of shaky. And I would say too that with the special teams being kind of shaky since Rizzy took over, and with him making a point out of bringing that up in the press conference last week, I would expect that they have a bounce back performance this week.
I have enjoyed how much Darren Rizzi seems to envy or just like love Washington special teams. He brought him up saying that this was like the best core unit that they faced so far this season. But even like before he took over for Dennis Allen, you know, he'd give these Friday updates. He'd always bring up Washington's like return unit and just stuff. Like a guy, can't believe I'm actually diving into special teams on the show, but a guy for Washington who is very good is Jeremy Reeves. He's basically like their JT Gray.
If we're going deep into Washington special teams, the bell's getting rung.
This is and this is the only week we're going to allow this to
I'm going to be able to do this. So
we start losing viewers.
By the way, who's kicking for Washington? Because Seibert's been off and on hurt, right?
Zane Gonzalez was a full participant in practice yesterday.
But they added Greg Joseph to the practice squad today. So, but I think Zane Gonzalez.
All right, that is enough Washington special teams talk. We're going to take a break, catch our breath after all of that, and we'll be back with keys to the game and predictions for Saints Commanders right after this. Welcome back to the Saints Insider. I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button while you're down there. Sign up for notifications. All of that stuff helps us out, helps us grow the show and get the word out. And so we appreciate it. Comment your prediction. We'll ask for those in just a few minutes. First, we want to do keys to the game, guys. We've probably mentioned them as usual, but I'm curious to hear what you focus on, Jeff.
Well, I think we touched on some of it. I mean, Luke mentioned the explosive plays on defense. They got to do whatever they can to eliminate that, because this is like an explosive offense waiting to happen. And I think they're going to come in humming, trying to score some knockout punches early on this Saints team. So if they can slog this game up a little bit defensively, kind of like they did with the Rams. I mean, remember that first half, the Rams were
they barely touched the ball in the first quarter.
Right. I mean, I think there's a little formula there. And then Haener's got to play well. Obviously, that goes without saying. But he's got to get some confidence early and just let it rip. And I think he will. I mean, I think he's going to play good in this game. I don't know if it's going to be good enough, but Jayden Daniels, I think, is the key. They've got to somehow limit him. If they don't, it's Katie bar the door.
Luke?
Let's slop it up, baby. I love it. Okay, I'm going to go with kind of what I referenced earlier. If they're going to get anything out of Jake Haener, they got to keep him upright. He can't be running for his life back there. That offensive line had kind of a shaky game last week, even though that was their first game together since opening series of week 3. They need to be on their A game this week. They need to open up lanes for the running game. They need to protect Jake Haener. I think if they can do those things, the Saints will have a shot at being competitive in this game. Just because of the variance we talked about with Washington's offense. I don't think that the Saints are going to hold this Washington offense down and win like an ugly game. But if they can at least manage to get the functioning parts of their offense going, the running game, keep Haener upright, I think they'll have a chance to at least make it interesting in the fourth quarter.
So these are actually keys to making it a game. It's like we're not actually talking about keys to win.
I mean, like, yeah, it would surprise me. They can win this game, though. I mean, we see crazy stuff happen in the NFL all the time.
Yeah, anybody can
It
win.
happens every week. Every week somebody loses a game that you're not expecting. Like, Saints can absolutely win this game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I would say this. We were talking earlier. I don't think this is a great team, Washington, at all. Like, I think it's a good team. I don't think.
Dare you, sir? No.
I just don't. I mean, like, they needed a Hail Mary to beat the Bears, the Cowboys almost beat them. I mean, the Cowboys did beat them, right?
Yeah.
So this is not this isn't the Lions or somebody coming in here or the Bills. It's a good team, but they're definitely beatable, especially at home in that incredibly difficult place to play, the Superdome.
We'll see if that's a teaser to Jeff's pick over there. All right, Matthew Paris, you were made for this.
I was
Commanders, Saints, keys to the game. What have you got?
I was made for this, and I'm going to go unconventional, but Jeff just kind of hit on it because Washington lost to Dallas. You hope that they're overlooking the Saints. They come out flat. They think that they're, guaranteed a playoff spot and overlook them. But you also hope that Washington reverts to being Washington, not whoever the hell this new franchise is. I'm going to read you a stat courtesy of Nikki Javala, my friend from the Washington Post. It's been 22 years since the Commanders won a road game right after the bye.
Wow.
Week 5, 2002, when they defeated the Titans. So that's the history of that franchise.
2002, Brian Brzee might not have even been born yet.
That Kendra Miller either, huh?
That stat
close.
almost made me pick the Saints, but logic prevailed.
22 years. That's actually an amazing. I mean, you figure they get half home games, half road games after the bye.
Yes.
So they've had 11 chances thereabouts. That's amazing.
So
okay, before we do predictions, my key to the game, by the way, is you guys mentioned is special teams. Outplay them on special teams. The Cowboys had a kick return for a touchdown, block another punt or a kick or something. Make some sort of a game-changing play on special teams.
See if they go for their 4th fake punt in the last 6 weeks.
Why not? Well, throw it all against the wall right now. That's what we're saying.
You know what was crazy? We're getting in the weeds. The Giants' average starting field position in the first half last week was like their own 45-yard line. It was crazy. And they
scored 3
points.
points.
It's absolutely insane.
You just can't do that. You can't keep doing that. Okay, before we do predictions, one bonus prediction, okay? Who has the better game in his first game against his old team, Chase Young or Marshon Lattimore, who is coincidentally coming back to face the Saints in his first game with Washington?
I'm just going to go Chase Young because I think it's easier for a defensive lineman to actually make impact plays. The Saints can just avoid Marshon if they want to.
True.
Which a lot of teams did when Marshon was a Saints player. There was a lot of games where, like, I was covering the Saints. I knew Marshon was a good player, and I'm like, I don't know, is Marshon out on the field today? They just didn't throw his way. So I think it's a little bit easier for Chase Young to control his impact on the game.
MVS might test that hammy though. Going to take him deep. Any other takers?
that's what they do.
I'll go Lattimore, actually, just because Chase Young had an incredible game against New York. Had some real interesting thoughts about the season he's having, which you can read on NOLA.com. Plug it away. But I just don't see him having that type of performance, specifically because Jayden Daniels, I think, can escape and
neutralize the pass.
Hard to sack.
Even just schematically, the Saints might neutralize their own pass rush because they want to clog up the lanes as much as they can.
Washington's line's having a good season, and they were terrible a year ago, but I think Daniels has a lot to do with that.
Who's their left tackle now? Is it that rookie Brandon Coleman?
Correct.
He's a guard at TCU.
Break a tie, Jeff. Marshon Lattimore or Chase Young, who has the bigger game?
I go with Chase Young because I think he's probably trending the right way, right? He's playing better and going against a rookie. And like Luke said, I can't see. I mean, Jake Haener is going to obviously know Lattimore. He's practiced against him a bunch. Lattimore's going to know Haener. And I think if I'm the Saints, there's no way.
And we talked about
it
might be a lot of underneath stuff and running game anyway. So
right.
might not be the opportunity
if
there.
If they do have him
Marshon.
travel with MBS, though, I think it is a good idea to just have MBS run 30-go routes.
Just make him run, baby. Just make him run. Makes hurry-up offense hard. But, okay, so those are our keys to the game and our kind of minor predictions. Now for the big one. Commanders at Saints. Rod Walker, who's not here, he wrote about Jayden Daniels, by the way. You can also read that on NOLA.com. Good story about him returning to the Superdome. 23-10 he picks for Washington. So we're all kind of in the same ballpark on this one, but 23-10 Commanders. Matt, the stage is yours.
31-17 Commanders. I picked 17 as optimistic because they averaged 15 points per game with Rattler. So got to give Haener a 2-point bump there.
All right. I actually felt like we needed somebody to say the Saints would at least cover, and that's the only reason I made this pick. 20-14. I think if the Saints are to keep it close, that's the recipe, is maybe make a big play on special teams to set up a touchdown, ball control, play good defense in the red zone, that sort of thing, and hold them to some field goals. So 20-14. I'm with you, Matt. If Derek Carr had been playing, I actually had this circled in my mind as possible Saints upset. It just feels like it could have been, but with Haener starting, I couldn't go there. By the way, I did want to give Matt credit. In the preseason, when we were going through game by game, he was the only one to pick Washington in this game.
I did not think they were going to be good, though. So
definitely a homer pick, but he may end up being right. So, Luke?
I went Commanders 27-13. And this kind of feels to me like it could be one of those games that we saw a bunch last year where the Saints get into a big hole early and then just kind of try to make it respectable later. Like it happened against the Lions and the Jaguars last year. It happened a couple times. Rams. Yeah. So that's kind of the vibe I'm getting out of this one. It's just like they're in such a bad spot offensively, just with who's available. And like we talked about, I feel like this is just a bad matchup for the Saints defense. I'm not confident whatsoever in their ability to slow these guys down.
Jeff Duncan, you have saved the Saints on these podcasts with a pick many a time before. Right. What have you got today?
I almost went with them just for the sheer contrarian.
Just for the lulls?
Just the contrarian role.
What's your record this year?
Wait, did you pick the Commanders?
Yes.
We should.
But I picked them.
I might want to switch.
And I picked them. I think I picked the Saints to cover, though. I think I picked a 6-point margin.
27-20 is what you said.
Okay.
So that would be a Saints cover.
Yeah. You picked the Giants last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were winless when picking against the Saints this year.
Correct.
Which is hilarious. They have 5 wins, and you haven't picked any of their wins.
The Giants were right there to win the game. I mean, they were right there.
In the predictions draft, you have the number one pick
somebody
locked
blocked
up
Brian
next year.
Rizzi, and they could win the game. So, but I would say this, and you can appreciate this, Zach, being the sports gambling aficionado. I think Jake Haener is the ultimate backdoor cover guy. So I think they're going to be like Luke said. I mean, this guy's going to be out there winging it if they're down 2 touchdowns and get that backdoor cover for the Saints. So that's what I'm predicting.
Didn't work out against the Chargers, though. Although I don't think they would have covered that game.
I needed the backdoor over in that game. You guys remember that?
I
needed the backdoor over, and he got down to the goal line and didn't get it in.
I do remember that.
The untimed down.
Yeah.
And Zach's like, come on, baby, come on.
He did have the backdoor over against Denver on the Thursday night. He came in that touchdown pass.
Discuss the grueling loss you had with Jameis down at the goal line?
I would rather not. PTSD. Betting on Jameis Winston, not good for the heart.
Throwing an interception in that situation.
All right. So we all pick the Washington Commanders, and that would, I believe, combined with the Bucs win, would eliminate the Saints. Am I right about that?
I think so. I think the magic number's 2.
The Bucs are underdogs at the Chargers, but it's certainly possible. So, and for all realistic purposes, it would eliminate the Saints if they were to lose. So we may be turning the page next week, but either way, we'll have a post-game show for you on Sunday after the game at the Dome. It's at noon on Sunday. I'm sure tickets are widely available. You can also watch it on Fox. What's the Dome going to be like, by the way? We got LSU fans in there, Washington fans. What do we think?
Yeah, I think it'll be like a little bit of mix of all that. Like we've said before, New Orleans in December is a good place for cold weather fans to travel to, especially a team like Washington that's resurgent this year. There are going to be a lot of LSU fans. I remember when the Bengals played here, there's tons and tons of people wearing the purple and gold Burrow jerseys. I think it'll be a decent crowd for the Saints. I looked up this morning, tickets were as low as $35 to get in. So
it's been worse.
It has been worse.
Okay, so we'll see you at the postgame show on Sunday. Until then, for our producer, Norman Bell, he's Matthew Paris, Luke Johnson, Jeff Duncan, the Bell, and I'm Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.